All right. Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Nick Marro
Oh,
here.
Nick, we already lost you.
Did you? I think I'm here.
First slide on.
Hold on one second. You lost me. I'm seeing myself on here, though. So, anyone in chat, can you hear both of us right now? That's the first question. Um,
What's up, chat? We're
um,
working with technical difficulties real quick, so bear
yeah,
with us.
I think I'm here. I can hear myself, man. I don't know if. Okay, we're both here, so we're good, I think. Can you hear me, Jayhawk? Or no? Yo, okay, so yeah, guys, I'm producing today. Our boy Eric's dealing with some tornadoes nearby, so we're gonna iron out these technical difficulties here and hit the ground running. Can you hear me now, Jayhawk?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you
Okay,
hear me?
good. Yeah, you're good. Like you said, I wasn't there, but I'm definitely here.
Yeah,
But yeah, it sounds like everyone in the chat can hear both of us, so I think we're good to
perfect.
go. So yeah, welcome everyone. Monday, new week. We're going to break down the NBA DFS slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel. There is some nuance tonight between the two sites. DraftKings has the full slate with the two late games. FanDuel decided to chop off the 10 o'clock game, so we don't get Chicago, Sacramento. We don't get OKC, LA. Obviously, I'm more of a FanDuel guy. DFS Jayhawk here is more of a DraftKings guy, so we got you covered either way. But yeah, pretty interesting slate here. Not a ton of injury news other than in that Wizards Jazz game. Obviously, a lot to break down there. But yeah, Jayhawk, what are your initial thoughts on this slate? Kind of all over the place, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. We were talking pre-stream. Definitely interesting that FanDuel, didn't want to include the late games. DraftKings has been weird, right? They've included the late games, some slates, and then other slates they've taken them off. So it's like, what's our plan here, DraftKings? But yeah, fun slate, man. Getting kind of flashbacks to last slate with all that ownership condensed on the Hornets game.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's run it back once again with this Washington game.
Yeah, man, it's interesting. And I think we have time to go through the full injury report. So we'll do that before we do the player by player or position by position, excuse me. But yeah, so first game we got my Nets here hosting the Grizzlies. Actually, on the first two-game winning streak of Coach Kevin Ollie's career, so pleasantly surprised with how they've been playing without Cam Thomas or Ben Simmons. But we'll start with the Grizzlies side. I mean, once again, a ton of guys out for this team. No Bane, no Clark. Jaren Jackson's doubtful. He's not going to play. John Morant, Scottie Pippen, Derrick Rose, Marcus Smart, Utah's out as well, and Zaire Williams. So the Grizzlies are super thin tonight. I know we've been playing a lot of Goodwin, but we do have Luke Kennard here, who's probably going to be running some point a little bit. I do imagine they start next to one another. But yeah, all the prices are up on these guys. Not the best matchup here with Brooklyn, who's actually been half decent defensively. One of the lower total games on the board. But I guess what are your first takes on Memphis? Is anything standing out to you? Obviously on DK, I mean, you don't have to dig as deep into some of these ugly spots with those late games, but is there anything here for the Grizzlies that you see yourself getting to tonight?
Yeah, so Memphis on DraftKings, I'm definitely lower on, but on FanDuel, I do like a couple of these guys here. Jordan Goodwin, obviously the most chalk, but I get it, 25%. I still think he plays
Yeah.
around 29 minutes, so like the model says, so I like him. And then I think Gigi Jackson. I know he's priced up on FanDuel, but with no Jaren, and I believe who was the other person that's out for them? Um,
Zaire.
yeah, Zaire. I think without Zaire as well, I think Gigi should get more minutes. So I like him in tournaments as well.
Yeah, Gigi is definitely more of a tournament play for me because he's likely to come off the bench. But I mean, in terms of point per dollar, he does have plenty of upside. I'm with you on Goodwin. My first thought was like, oh no, Kennard's back. What's this going to do? But I think as long as Goodwin's starting at point, he's going to continue to run the offense. He's already shown he can hit value without shooting. He almost had a triple double a few nights ago, and he didn't score until the half in terms of real points. So I like Goodwin here. And then Aldama, I do want to bring up too in the front court. Again, they're very thin here. I don't think they're going to start Jameson against Claxton. If they do, maybe this changes my mind a little bit, but I don't know. I think all the starters are okay, but again, I mean, we're really going to be loading up on that Wizards Utah game, especially on FanDuel. I think every other game is a higher total, so I don't want to just kind of quickly go over Memphis with too much haste, but I mean, yeah, if Steven starts, I think he's going to be interesting. He's a guy we've been playing even coming off the bench, but we're going to need the lineup. and I'm not confident in what they're going to roll out there. But the good news is this is the first game on the slate, so we should have that sooner rather than later. And as soon as we do get that news, we'll definitely talk through it. As for the Nets on the other side, so they got a bunch of guys down with the G League. Simmons is out, still no Cam Thomas. Both of them are day to day. They should be back soon, but we already got that news that they're going to be out tonight. So I don't know. Dennis Schroeder looks to be popular again. He's been playing really good basketball. Claxton's been fine, kind of inconsistent in the minutes here, but with Simmons out, that should secure his floor a little bit. I know a few slates ago, Cam Johnson was like ridiculously chalky, and he paid it off and then some. Had an awesome night. But yeah, I guess which Nets are you honing in on here? Does anyone seem to stand out over the others? And is there anyone that's maybe overowned as far as you're concerned? Because again, one of the lower total games on the slate, but it does seem like the field's overlooking these guys at least a little bit.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely on a couple of these Brooklyn Nets, your team, the Brooklyn Nets. So yeah, starting up top, I think Dennis Schroeder, probably my favorite guy to target here. Without Ben Simmons, man, he's been very consistent. So
Yeah,
he's my favorite option here from Brooklyn. And then I think Bridges, Cam Johnson, and Claxton, all good in tournaments on both sides. Claxton finally had that huge game we've been kind of waiting on.
yeah,
So I like him a lot in tournaments. And then Cam Johnson, like, yeah, you mentioned him. He was chalk like a couple sets ago. Just nukes. Seems like he always nukes his chalk, man. So yeah, so I think he's fine. And then Bridges. So Bridges, I've always been playing. He kind of showed us that huge ceiling the last game out. So I'm fine with him in tournaments as well.
yeah. Certainly not as good of a matchup as they were getting with the Hawks those last two games, but I do think there's still a lot of upside for these guys. The one starter you didn't mention is Finney Smith, obviously the riskiest play here, but if he's going to be low on compared to Cam Johnson, I mean, I don't know. You're not getting a huge ownership discount right now. I'd rather just go to Cam Johnson, but as like a last piece in, I don't think it's crazy to maybe mix in some Finney Smith. But yeah, again, not the best game on paper, but on FanDuel, you're going to have to get probably some pieces here just because again, we only have a handful of games, 4 game slate. But yeah, let's check in with the comments here. Welcome everyone. We got Chris saying let's go. A few guys helping us out on the technical side. We had Michael. We can hear both. Good to hear. Our boy Jose, who's always in here, one of our loyal watchers. Good day, gentlemen. Again, helping us out with the technical side. We always appreciate that. Some thumbs up from Bill. We got Lucas here. Sexton smash season tonight. I tend to agree. We're going to get to that game soon. Jose, with the who are you putting the house on tonight?
Ooh.
I don't know if I'm putting the house on any one play, but I guess we'll maybe about that when we get to the Wizards game. I think if there's any game where I'm really going to be focused, it's there. And who's tonight's Wendell Carter? I'm guessing you were on yesterday where you guys shouted out Carter, right? He went off at low ownership.
Yeah, T-Bull, just bear with me. I'll try to find one here as the stream goes on.
And then we have Parker here. Where do you cut off when looking at value on OF? I mean, it really depends on the slate. I don't know that I'm necessarily cutting off at any specific point. Again, it depends how much value we have available. It's tough to really set a number. But I don't know. First look, I'll see where we're at. So, like, if we're sorting by FanDuel value, I mean, usually it's like the first page, honestly. Like, if they're not on the first page, maybe it's getting a little bit thin. But yeah, if you're on FanDuel tonight, you got to pull off these late games so it gets a little bit more narrow. But yeah, I mean, there's some plays down here I don't feel great about, like Kamara. Um, I don't know, Coolably. Like, honestly, first page is kind of a good grade of thumb. But again, if you're playing a massive slate, you could probably scroll down a little bit more. If you're playing a very small slate, I don't know. Again, it's relative to the slate, but is there a number you're kind of stopping at for value, or is it more just how your builds are kind of shaking out? I don't know. I just think that's a really tough question to answer.
Yeah, it's tough. I typically kind of agree with you. Like, I don't usually scroll past like the first page and like a quarter for DK and FanDuel value. You can, I guess, but I try to stick to just the top DK and FanDuel values if possible.
No, I tend to agree. I think that's a good rule of thumb. First page or so. Jose giving Boyle the Drummond play here. I mean, he kind of fits a similar mold. High upside center. Minutes maybe a little bit insecure or unsecure rather, but priced about the same. So we can talk about Drummond when we get to that game. And then, yeah, I feel you on this one, Cal. Watching Trey Jones last night do nothing was painful. Really talented player has disappeared at times last night. Not the place we wanted to see that, but yeah, guys, get your questions in as we go through. We're going to keep plugging away here on the injury reports. Again, nothing too major. Getting into this next game here, we have what should be a very fun game to watch. Clippers, no Russell Westbrook. Um, I mean, I don't know. How do you feel about the Clippers here? No major injuries, opening opportunity, or anything like that. Zubac is back and healthy. He should be good to go. We're projecting him around 24 minutes. But the big three is healthy now, all getting their regular run. I personally still think Paul George is a little banged up, even though he's playing his normal minutes. But where are you at on these guys? Obviously, not the best matchup against Milwaukee in terms of defense, but they've obviously been a little softer in the backcourt this season. And when they are good on defense, they kind of offset that by playing really quick. So I think actually the Clippers might be paced up here slightly. But what are your takes on the Clippers? All of them are very, very low owned on both sites, I will say.
Yeah, man. Typically I would just see this as a good viewing game, but I think this game is actually pretty sneaky for fantasy. Starting out with Kawhi up top, I think he's probably my favorite option from the Clippers here. 9K on DraftKings. If everyone's gonna, condense on this Washington game, I think him as like a low on play. I wouldn't hate as a play there. So like Kawhi up top. Pretty good play on FanDuel too. And then in terms of Harden and PG, these guys are always tougher for me. Harden has been off and on, and then you mentioned Paul George has been kind of on a limit. Not really sure his minutes, so those two are tougher. But I really like Kawhi up top here.
Yeah, and I agree with the Kawhi take. I mean, he has been consistently pushing 40 minutes a night, which is more than we could say for Georgia Harden. Harden does have upside, but if I'm paying up at guard today, it's probably not him. I will bring up with Russ out, we're seeing a little bit of extra run for both Man and Powell. They're more expensive than they have been, but as like a last piece in, I don't mind Man on DK. I don't mind Powell on either side. Do I feel great about these guys? No, not really. But just a few extra minutes for them in a decent game environment does kind of create some upside at very low ownership if you're trying to get away from some of the chalk. But yeah, it's tough to say there's really any core plays here. Then over on the Milwaukee side, I think Giannis is still questionable. I don't know if we got that news yet. I'd be shocked if he sat tonight. But they are listing it as Achilles tendonitis, which sounds gross on paper, but maybe it's just BS. So we got to wait and see on that one. I think he plays. I think we kind of have to talk about it as if he does, but still no Beauchamp or Middleton on the wing, so a little bit of increased opportunity. Obviously, if Giannis is out, we're going to want to get to some Dame, some Portis, some Lillard, but assuming he's in, is Giannis someone you're prioritizing tonight, or are any of these other Bucks kind of standing out to you? Dame appears to be very popular over on FanDuel. Giannis as well, honestly. But yeah, none of these guys popular on DK. Portis, 11% at 5,500, but that's the highest owned player on DK here. Obviously, the Clippers are damn good on defense, but yeah, I mean, they're kind of affordable, generally speaking, outside of Giannis.
Yeah, man. On FanDuel, I think these guys are look a lot better. Particularly Dame here. 8,600 on this slate on FanDuel looks pretty dang good. So, 29%. I do like that ownership over there for Dame. And then if Giannis sits, let's just talk through real quick. Bobby Portis on both sides, I think, would look really good. And then obviously Dame and you could probably throw in, I don't know, maybe Jay Crowder as well for value if Giannis sat. So, yeah, as of right now, I think Dame, Giannis, Portis probably the guys I'd look to on FanDuel, but if Giannis sits, I think we have a whole different conversation here.
Yeah, obviously, if Giannis sits, that opens up a lot. Portis would be the guy we'd probably be forcing, even if he came off the bench. We've seen that Portis in games without Giannis has been really solid this season. But yeah, another situation to monitor. Hopefully, we have that news soon. Like I said, I'd be surprised if he didn't play here. Obviously, a big game. It's tough to get the opportunity to square up against one of the best teams in the West. So I think they kind of want to gauge where they're at right now. But we'll wait and see on that one. Moving into what appears to be the most likely game to blow out tonight. Trying to find the spread here. I think it's over 10 points, but yeah, we hit the Blazers. No Brogdon. Kamara's questionable. Grant's doubtful. He's going to be out. No Scoot Henderson. Shady and Sharp still out. Aiton's questionable as well. I mean, honestly, just given the matchup, I'm really not excited to get to anything from Portland right now. I know Simons is getting a little bit of love on both sides. Jabari Walker has had some decent games. He's been kind of boomer bust. But, I mean, with Aiton out, would you be getting to Duwop Reith? I know he was chalked the other night. I was saying probably don't play him as chalk, and he actually had a pretty damn good game. But yeah, this matchup with Minnesota, one of the best front court defenses in the league. I mean, I'm having trouble getting to anything here. But I guess what are your takes on Portland? If the game's close, if it's a blowout, is there really anything here that you see yourself getting to with any sort of aggression?
Yeah, man, this game just seems kind of gross from particularly this Portland side. Let's start out with Reed, like you mentioned him. I don't like him either. Really tough spot. I will know he can shoot the three ball, pull Gobert out a little bit, but I still don't love it. So probably no Reed for me. And then Tumani Kamara is also questionable. So monitor that. Maybe we could look to guys like Jabari Walker and let's see who else is down here. Chris Murray, maybe. So those two minor bumps if Kamara sits, but man, I don't see any way this game doesn't blow up.
Yeah, it would be surprising to me as well. I mean, there have been some weird spots this season where things kind of go left, but I don't know, man. The slate I'm looking at now doesn't have the spread, but it has them as a minus 1,200 favorite on the money line. I can pull up the spread real quick, but yeah, I'd be shocked if this game were to stay close. Obviously, the T-Wolves have been playing good basketball. But yeah, 14-point spread. So we're looking at football spreads here. Never a good sign when we're talking about the NBA. Then
Mhm.
over on the Minnesota side, they've been banged up, but they're seemingly getting healthy now. Let's see. Kyle Anderson's questionable once again. Jordan McLaughlin's questionable. That's really it here. So I guess if Anderson's out, maybe we could go back to Nas Reed. Jaden McDaniels is a guy I'm never trying to play, but he's had a few massive games lately. I haven't been rostering him, so is what it is, I guess. But are there any pieces here from Minnesota you'd be interested in? Again, some blowout risk, all kind of price where they should be. I think it's just a tough spot to get to.
Yeah, so the DK ownership for Minnesota is kind of how I see it too. I think Gobert is just in a great spot. Other than the blowout. So 7,500, I do really like that price for Gobert in tournaments. And then yeah, guys like Reed and Nickel would all come down to Anderson's status. You can maybe take stabs at either one of those guys, but it's just really tough, man. And then I did want to note on Portland, I kind of glossed over him. I think Jabari Walker is probably the one guy I could play in tournaments just because I think he could get some blowout run here for them as well.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And going off that, I mean, I guess Reed and maybe Alexander Walker are kind of fitting that mold. If
Yeah.
you want to talk about a hybrid player for Minnesota, yeah, Morales, Jose here, shouting it out. I really like Nas Reed, especially if Portland gets blown out early. We have seen him get run into the fourth in games where where things do get a bit out of hand. I would feel better about that if Anderson's out. The one issue I think is that Reed is priced up because they have been thin. 5,700 on DK, 6,700 on FanDuel. He does have power forward eligibility, but I honestly don't feel too great about it. I mean, the one thing that they really have going for them here is that they're going to be low on, but I think looking at this next game here, we're going to understand why. We got the Wizards and the Jazz.
Oh boy.
The Wizards are without no one really important, but the Jazz, Keontae George is questionable. No Marketing or Kessler, which is obviously huge. But then Otto Porter Jr. is not with the team. But yeah, we're looking at a 241 total, 5.5 point spread. Let's start on the Washington side. Yeah, look at these ownerships. I mean, Denny almost 60% over on FanDuel, Kuzma around 30% on both sites. Seeing a ton of love going to Tyus Jones. Jordan Poole has actually been shooting half decent coming off the bench. Personally, I love Kuzma and Denny, but the field tends to agree. I will say on DK, I think Denny's under owned. That's definitely a tournament play I'd be looking to get pretty aggressive on over there. But yeah, what are your takes on the Wizards here? I mean, it seems like there's a lot to like. The one guy I'm probably not playing is Coulibaly, not only because I can't pronounce his name, but because even when he gets minutes, he doesn't always seem to hit value. But I mean, Denny, Marvin Bagley, even Kuzma, Tyus Jones, they're all very appealing to me. I think you could mix in Poole and Kispert in tournaments. But yeah, how you feeling about Washington here in a rare good matchup for the terrible Wizards?
Yeah, so let's start out with Kuzma here. I think he's arguably the top play on the slate on both sides here. 7,400. I don't know what DraftKings is doing, but that is a way too cheap of price for him.
Yeah.
So love him on both sides, FanDuel and DraftKings. And then Tyus Jones, I think, is a great play as well. I think the last game was a minor blowout, so kind of ignore the last game long for Tyus, but I think he's in a prime spot here as well. So those two probably my two favorites. And then guys like Jordan Poole, obviously he can bring the scoring off the bench. So at sub 10% ownership on both sides, don't hate it. And then you mentioned Denny, man. I love that call. Seems like way too low on DraftKings, 12%. I'll try to be at least double that. So yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm right there with you. Those top three in terms of pricing, Kuzma, Denny, and Jones all look excellent. Bagley's a little bit more expensive than I want him to be. But yeah, I mean, he's playing 33 minutes in competitive games. I think that's what we're going to see here. And with Kessler and Laurie out, this is actually a better matchup for him than he usually is. Jordan Poole as well, kind of coming in off the bench, scoring dependent, some risk. I mean, Utah has their own guy who is scoring dependent coming off the bench in Jordan Clarkson. But yeah, let's talk through their injury report here. I already mentioned it. I already ran through this actually. So Kessler, Markin, and Arau, Keontae's questionable. But yeah, crazy, crazy ownership on both sites. I mean, Collins 45 on DK, 63 on FanDuel, Sexton 37.52. Horton Tucker's an interesting one. I think we have to talk about 36 and 25. But Clarkson looks good. George, if he's in, I mean, everyone is drawing ownership for this team tonight. We're talking about guys like Bryce Sensabaugh, Omer Yurtseven, the old Miami Heat backup center. I don't feel as great about some of this value. I do love the starters and then Clarkson coming off the bench. But yeah, man, how are you feeling about these guys? And I put an emphasis on some of these secondary plays because I think it's obvious we like Sexton, we like Collins, we like Clarkson and George if he's in. But what are your takes on Hendricks, Sensabaugh, and then I guess we're talking about Horton Tucker and Yurtseven too tonight, which feels a little crazy.
Yeah, so Utah bench players, just in general, I never typically love to roster because just so volatile with rotations and stuff. But at 3,643, I think Taylor Horn Tucker probably my favorite down here for value for Utah. I just think he should, if he doesn't start, he should play a ton of minutes off the bench. So love Tucker. I think Hendricks, he's still fine.
Yeah,
It just is an elevated price point for him. So for Tucker for the savings, if you getting to one of those. And then in terms of Yurtseven and Sensible, is he a guard? Like, let me make sure.
he's a
No,
wing.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, geez, I don't even know who that was. So Sensible, I think is fine as well. And then Yurtseven should get back up 5 run. So it's a great spot for him in tournaments. So I think I'd probably rank them Tucker, Yurtseven, Hendricks, Sensible, but it's really tough, man. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think even with the price increase, I'd put Hendricks over Yurtseven just because we know what we're going to see from him in terms of minutes. I'm curious where we're projecting these guys. Horton Tucker only 18 minutes, but he's so cheap, he should probably be able to get there regardless. Yurtseven we have for 15, Sensabaugh 22, Hendricks 30. Man, it's tough. Like, I don't know. Most sites I'm seeing have Sensabaugh projected as the starter. Like, I'm going through his game logs here. I'll do it on DK so we can give the visual. But I'm trying to find a game where he even got to 20 minutes. I don't know if he's played 20 minutes yet in the NBA. In the games he's played 15, 16 minutes, he hasn't even come close to value. So if he's going to be chalk, I'm pretty comfortable getting away from it and just kind of playing a little bit more balanced tonight. Yurtseven's interesting. I think if he does get 15 plus, he's probably in play. But the Wizards after Bagley can probably play small. Like, I don't know how much they want to lean on Rashawn Holmes.
Yeah,
Trying to see how many minutes he's been playing. But this is a situation where I do think Bagley gets his run. He plays 33 plus, but I think it's more likely than not they kind of play small behind him. I know Omer Yuri is a guy they've been trying to give run to in certain spots. Very inconsistent in terms of his minutes, but I don't know. I'm a little bit worried about getting to Yurt 7 just because I don't know that they even need a backup center here.
yeah, man, that's fair, right? Like Washington, we've seen them run small with Kuzma at the 5, Denny at the 5. So I definitely think it's risky. I just want to know it is a good matchup if he gets the minutes. So
Oh yeah, certainly. But yeah, I mean at 20% owned, I mean if I'm MMEing, I definitely try to come in under that.
mhm.
It is interesting. Has Chris Dunn just been kind of out of the rotation? Because he's someone, yeah, he's been
Oh,
pretty
weird.
bad. I mean, if Keontae George is out, I think some of these secondary guys become a little bit more interesting. But assuming he's in, like I said, I mean, I trust the starters except for Sensabaugh, and then I trust Clarkson and THT more than the other value. But I'm a little bit surprised some of these like secondary options are so popular, but I guess it's kind of the makeup of the slate, especially over on FanDuel where we're kind of scraping for value. Let's see if we got any questions or comments here. Things are coming in now. Kuzma and Jones feel like priorities. Totally agree, Jose. Barry asking about a punt here from Portland. Hagens, what do you think about him? Banton's a guy I've been playing a little bit. I haven't been getting too much of this Ashton Hagens kit, but he's coming off 2 massive games. Let me pull him up because I was a little bit surprised looking at what he's been doing earlier. But that's actually a good shot. I think it's worth talking about.
Yeah, man. I kind of looked at him as well, like last time when I was overviewing the slate. So I think he's still fine. I'm just kind of curious. Do you think he'll get blowout run? Because if he does, should be very solid at low ownership.
Yeah, I think he does. And while like I'm not super confident in him here, I will say they're obviously very thin at guard. They have no Brogdon, no Scoot. Um, no Grant obviously opens up some usage. And I do feel better about him than like some of these guys for Utah, like Sensabaugh, Yurt 7. And he's a little bit more expensive. It's not a good matchup, but he should get run in a blowout. So I actually like that call a lot. Shouts out Barry there. That's definitely a good call. Demetrius with some education here on Sensabaugh, combo guard from Ohio State. I thought he was a little bit bigger, but I guess yeah. Again, this is not a guy we've been really honing in on much this season, saying he's a small guard. So yeah, I get it. I'm just wondering why he hasn't been producing at all in the minutes he's been on the floor. Like if he starts, especially, he's going to be sharing usage with the likes of Collins, Sexton, etc. So I don't feel too great about it. But obviously, at his price, there is some viability there. The Prince saying if Giannis plays smash spot, the Clippers are one of the best defenses in the NBA. But if they're soft anywhere, it is the front court. I like any game that Giannis is going to be in that's competitive. It's rare we see him get over 30 minutes if the game isn't. But this one looks like one that will be. So I'm totally fine with that. But I'll give this one to you here: Dort or Jabari Walker, as things stand.
I'm gonna say Jabari Walker just because potentially Kamara, they could be down Kamara, and then I think he could play blowout. So I'm gonna say Walker. I think he has a higher ceiling than Dort.
Nice. I'm with it. And then who gets the biggest usage bump if Keontae George is ruled out? I think it's Sexton first and foremost. He's going to have to do more ball handling. And then Collins is playing the five tonight, but he's going to be shooting more aggressively. That's going to secure minutes for someone like Clarkson. If George is out, you're going to see Chris Dunn start. So the answer is Sexton. But I also think it benefits Clarkson, Dunn if he starts, probably Horton Tucker too, secures a couple more minutes for him. I think he plays, but we're going to keep an eye on that one. Um, and then Parker here. It seems like everyone's chalky. So let me say this. So yes, everyone's chalky on FanDuel, but if you're sorting by OF index, um, kind of see who are the top plays that aren't drawing a ton of ownership. Um, and it's tricky. Like I guess it's kind of for a reason here because obviously we don't love this Portland Minnesota game. But like Kawhi's only 17% owned. I'd say that's a good way to get a little bit different to play like that. Mikal Bridges is 20%. That's not terrible. Um, Bagley looks a little bit under owned. Vince Williams, honestly, I know he's priced up, but he looks a little bit under owned. So you're not going to find too many guys in the single digits you feel great about on a 4 game slate. But if you can mix in a few guys in the 10 to 20s, I think you're going to be different enough. So you don't have to go too weird with it, especially on a 4 gamer, because it's going to be hard to find guys that are actually good at basketball if you have a bunch of single digit owned plays on FanDuel. But yeah, let's move into this last game here, or 2 last games here over on DK. These are viable. FanDuel does have a late slate if you're playing it, but for the main slate's purpose, this is DK only. The Bulls, Caruso's questionable. Still no Torrey Craig, Levine, or Patrick Williams. I know Ayo's been excellent. I think everyone's been playing him pretty aggressively. I like him again tonight if you're over on DK. Decent spot for Vooch against the bonus. I don't hate it. DeRozan drawing decent ownership, Kobe White as well. But where are you at on these Bulls? And do you see yourself getting to any Drummond at $5,200?
Yeah, man. Drummond, I don't expect him to start here, but even if he doesn't start, pretty good matchup for Drummond here. So, I don't hate him off the bench. And then in terms of the rest of Chicago, I do really like AO here at 5,700. I've just always been kind of a big AO guy. He doesn't necessarily light up the stat sheet. He just plays 45 minutes a night or 40 minutes a night and just
Yeah.
gets there. So I like him as well at 57. And then I think Vucevic is probably my favorite out of the big three of DeRozan, Vooch, and White. So Vucevic 7,900 on DraftKings I like as well.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And back to the Drummond point, if Caruso's out, we have seen historically that his minutes do go to Drummond. Obviously, they play different positions, but that would boost the floor of Drummond here. And again, I don't think he starts. We're only seeing them start 2 centers against the Cavs and the T Wolves, and I think that's it as far as like really big teams right now where they're running out that lineup. But again,
Yeah.
Drummond is one of the first guys to come off the bench. He is someone I'd be looking at here at 5,200, especially if Caruso's out. So definitely keep an eye on that bit of news. Over on the King side, Fox is questionable again. And this has been kind of obnoxious, honestly. I mean, Davion Mitchell, whenever he's chalk, he sucks. Whenever he's unowned, he's awesome. If Fox is out, but they've actually been going to Keon Ellis as the starter at times as well. I personally don't feel great about either of these guys. More than anything, what it does is creates a nice uptick in usage for Sabonis. He's had some big games with him out. And then Malik Monk would probably be the second priority for me off the bench. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Kings here? I guess if Fox is in or if he's out, because I think we kind of have to break that down both ways. I can't imagine we get that news before lock.
Yeah, man. So just a quick note here: Fox did go through shoot around. We've seen it before. He's went through shoot around and not played. So he could potentially still not play, but I do expect him to play here. So if he's in, I think he's I don't know. I think he's fine. 8,500 still seems a little bit too cheap. Like I don't know until he gets up to 9K on DraftKings. I'm probably gonna keep playing him. And then Malik Monk, I agree. If he's out, should look pretty good in the mid tier, 6,500. And then Sabonis up top. I think it's a pretty good spot against Vucevic. So the big three: Sabonis, Fox, and Monk, all fine, just dependent on his news.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think even if Fox is in, 10% for Sabonis on DK is probably a little bit too low, knowing what he's capable of. And then we're moving into the last game on the slate now. We have OKC at the Lakers. Jalen Williams with an eye is out tonight in that front court. Other than that, really nothing significant for OKC. I think if you can get the SGA sub 10%, he's fine. Holmgren's been really solid lately. Tough matchup for him against the Lakers, but again, low own play with upside. He makes some sense. And then Jalen Williams with an E has been really solid. He's probably my favorite player here, point per dollar. The field tends to agree. 10% owned is still pretty low, though, for a 6 game slate. So I don't mind getting to any of those three. Dort's always okay as the last piece in. Really no interest in Giddy with his limited minutes, knowing he's scoring dependent. But what are your takes on OKC here? Not the best matchup with LA, but we have seen some players spiking upside against them on occasion.
Yeah, just quick shout out to Boyle if you're listening. Jalen Williams is going to be the low end play of the day. I really like him here. Like you mentioned, 10% ownership. I don't really understand it against LA. He typically wakes up, so I love him here at 10%. Probably my favorite OKC guy. And then I think SGA and Chet probably my favorite after Jalen. Shea is fine at 10,700. I'm not like taking a stand on him trying to get to him, but I think he's fine. And then Chet's coming off a pretty tough game. I think this is a decent bounce back spot against the Lakers. So Jalen Williams and Chet were kind of the guys that I was kind of looking to the most.
Nice, man. Yeah, and I tend to agree. I mean, again, not the best matchup on paper, but at the same time, one of the higher total games on the slate. They're all kind of reasonably priced. I'm with you, though. I think Williams is probably the most appealing of the three just because he is a little bit cheaper. And if LA is tough on defense, it is actually the front court there. So I think that does favor the guards just a little bit. But yeah, that big three, they all make some sense to me. And then we got to talk about the Lakers here. Davis is probable. LeBron's questionable. Cam Reddish is back and healthy. Still no Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Wood, or Gabe Vincent. But yeah, AD very popular here. I don't know if folks are expecting LeBron to be in or out. I don't know that it matters at 10-1. He does feel a little bit too cheap. If LeBron's in, sub 10K, gonna make some sense. Not my favorite spot for Russell, honestly. He's been good against bad backcourt defenses. I think OKC is one of the better backcourt defenses right now, so tough for me to get to him. But maybe Reeves is a secondary play. But I guess other than AD and LeBron, nothing really jumping off the page. But how are you feeling about LA here?
Yeah, man. I think both AD and Braun are both fine in tournaments. I tend to lean LeBron here until he gets up to like 10K. I'm gonna keep playing him. So it is a pretty tough matchup against OKC, but I think both these guys are fine in tournaments with LeBron and AD.
Yeah, I agree. I am surprised they're only 400 apart in price, though. Like most of the
Mhm.
season, that gap has been wider. So I think I would get the AD first, but you're seeing half the ownership on LeBron. I think at tournaments that is a very logical pivot to make. But yeah, so we got about 15 minutes or so left. The slate is locking 15 or 30 minutes later than usual tonight, so we do have time to quickly go position by position. Just keep in mind, to everyone tuned in, the FanDuel slate does not have those late games. So what I'll do is I'll go to you first. We're gonna go guards,
Mhm.
and give me your, I don't know, regardless of price, kind of your favorite guard plays here. I'm gonna sort by ownership. I think that should capture most of what we're looking at. But you go DK, I'll go FanDuel.
Perfect. I'm gonna say Ty Shone's probably number one for me. Love Sexton, so we'll go him number two. I don't want to name all Washington Utah guys, so I'm gonna go. Man, it's tough. I'm gonna say Aodusumu from a non Utah game,
Mm-hmm.
and then let me do one more here. Let's look at the low ownership.
I can scroll if you need.
Yeah, this is tough. Um, let's go with Mikal Bridges as like an extremely low play.
Okay, yeah. In my head, he's a forward, but obviously with guard eligibility, I do like that play.
Yeah,
Yeah, for me over on FanDuel, again, 4 game slate, a little bit tougher to get away from the chalk. Um, I like Sexton, I like Clarkston, I like George. I think they're all obvious. If you're playing them all in a lineup, I don't think it's crazy tonight, honestly. But yeah, I will say I think Schroeder's a little bit underowned against
Yep.
Memphis. I do like him here at 6,400. I'm probably going to get to him in that same game. Vince Williams, 7,300, not the most appealing price tag, but with Jackson off the floor, we've seen him leading the team in usage. I think we're going to continue to see that here. 7,300 for him is very appealing. Then let me just see if there's something else low owned I can kind of mix in. We got the DK slate up too, so it's tough.
Yeah.
Uh, If I X out DK, what do we got? Sorting by OF index. Yeah, I mean, I like Bridges, but he's 20% here. Tyus is chalky. I do like him. Man, I guess it's tough not to just eat the chalk guard
It's
tonight. I
tough.
will say Jordan Poole at 11%. I hate Jordan Poole, the player. I hate playing him in DFS, but if there was ever a matchup for him where he should be able to succeed, here is that spot. And you're getting him at 11% owned compared to very, very other chalky guards in this game. So very easy way to get different. Just play Poole instead of one of the other Jazz guards. I think that's fine. Um,
And then we've kind of forgot Dame. I
yeah.
don't know if 29% on FanDuel, I think is pretty solid too. Especially Chuck shouted out in the chat. Giannis cut his shooter, and now he's out. Giannis is out. Never mind.
Okay. All
So
right.
Dame,
So okay, that's big. I think we need to just pause what we're doing and
yeah,
talk through this now. So, yeah, with Giannis out, Dame's going to become a priority everywhere, as is Bobby Portis. I'm guessing books just took that spread off the board. The Clippers are 1.5 point favorites on the road before this news broke, but the total or the spread open with the Bucks is 5.5 point favorites. So it kind of sounds like maybe Vegas knew something. So I don't know that it's going to swing too much more from here. We're going to have to wait and see. But yeah, if Giannis is out, Dame's obviously a priority now. Portis is obviously a priority now. They still don't have Middleton. So
yeah.
guys like Beasley as a secondary option. I know you mentioned Crowder before, fine, but really the priorities here are definitely Damon Portis, right? Is there anyone else you'd add into that group?
Um, it's tough. Maybe you could look at a guy like Jay Crowder for value, but yeah, I agree. It's gonna be Dame. It's gonna be Portis, especially on DraftKings. 5,500 for Portis. Man, sign me up.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I will say, I mean, Lopez always seems under-owned in these situations. He's risky, but if you want to get off of some chalk, I do think he's fine as a pivot, maybe off Portis. I don't want to recommend not playing Portis, though. So if you can play both, I think it's fine. And I will say, of these bench guys, Beasley definitely has the highest ceiling. He's just so dependent on the three ball. If that shot's not falling, he could really kill you. But at the same time, he's probably going to come in lower owned than he should compared to some of these other guys. Very high ceiling for him. So I'll use that to transition into forwards here. We're still waiting on this data to update on Milwaukee, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, I guess where are you at forward? I mean, we obviously like Collins, Kuzma, but any other players really jumping out at you at the forward positions?
Yeah, so you mentioned Collins and Kuzma, probably my two favorites, and then I think Bobby Portis got to be in that conversation as well now.
Oh yeah, big time.
So those three probably the three most optimal plays in terms of forwards, and then Taylor Horn Tucker, he's going to be kind of dependent on if he starts. Obviously, he looks great. And then going for lower on guys real quick. I mentioned Jalen Williams. I think he's good. I think G.G. Jackson, good in tournaments as well with no Zaire Williams and Jaron
Mhm.
Jackson. So I like that. And then yeah, it's probably about it for me. How about you?
Yeah, I feel similarly about the Utah Washington game, but I will counter your GG with Santi Aldama. I think his
Yep.
minutes are a little bit more secure, and if he's not going to be popular either, I do like him a lot here in that front court. Obviously, we're going to be getting to tons of Bobby Portis now. I mentioned Beasley is kind of a hybrid play there. I think he's guard eligible on DK only though, so take that one with a grain of salt. Love Kuzma, love Denny. You could play them in the same lineup together. And then Cam Johnson, he was super chalk a couple nights ago with all these guys out for Brooklyn. They're very thin here again. Good matchup against Memphis. Another guy who needs his shots to fall, but they have been falling for him lately. Streaky player. I'm fine going back to Cam Joe. And yeah, I mean, Horton Tucker's interesting. Like, I like him off the bench's value if you are kind of going stars and scrubs, but with Giannis out now, there's not a ton to pay up for. So I'm kind of entertaining the idea of maybe not getting to Horton Tucker. I'll feel better about that if Keontae George is in. If George is out, probably just have to bite down and play him. But yeah, and then I'll mention Sensabaugh too, even if he starts. Not crazy about that one until he shows me that he can produce at the NBA level consistently. That's just not something I'm excited about. But yeah, man. I mean, we got to play Portis now. Between him, Collins, Denny, Kuzma. I mean,
Yeah.
it's tough to get away from some of this chalk. Let's see here. Wow, tons of comments in the chat. So let me scroll up.
It's Giannis, man. He's changing the slate.
Yeah, I know. Jeez Louise. 1 second. I'm scrolling. We got so much here. Um, it's lagging. There's so many comments. Okay. So Barry's saying, can you stack this game or is it too chalky, Utah, Washington? I think you can. Now we're going to be mixing in Milwaukee, which should flatten out the ownerships a little bit. I'd say just make sure you have one play at least in kind of the 10 to 20% range. You're going to have to get at least a little bit different on FanDuel. On DK, it's easier. Do we think Fox plays? I mean, he went through shoot around. I lean yes, but I did lean yes the other day when he got ruled out. Do you have any sort of take on this?
I'm right there with you. Eileen, yes, but we've seen him also get ruled out after he went through warm up. So I think it's a true 50-50.
Yeah, Collins or Drummond. I think you have to go Collins here with the front court completely decimated for Utah. I will say if Caruso's out, it does become more interesting. But for me, it's John Collins.
If,
Um,
I like Drummond in tournaments, so if you mentioned if Curse is out, I like him as well.
yeah, good call. And then yeah, what you said at the start of the show, Utah Washington feels like Raptors Hornets. I will say with Giannis being ruled out, that should open up a lot of chalk on Milwaukee and hopefully drive some of this ownership down. Just skipping a few comments that are redundant. We did have Chuck let us know that Giannis cut his routine short. We had a bunch of guys telling us Giannis is out. We do appreciate it. I'm not going to pull it up, but Barry's saying Drummond 20 plus boards. I mean, it's possible. Do we like Sexton more than Williams? That's kind of tricky. I mean, on FanDuel, you don't have a choice. Williams isn't even available. I think at the ownership, Williams is a pretty damn good pivot, especially if you're playing Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson. But what's your take on this, Sexton or Williams? Because I think that is a very cool, not the word, or a very sharp pivot there if you want to get away from some of that chalk.
I'm assuming Jalen Williams is that
Jalen Williams, it
okay?
has to be Jalen Williams.
Yeah. So it's so close, man. I feel like Sexton has a huge ceiling, especially if there's no George. So really close.
Yeah.
I'd probably lean Sexton in this matchup, but both are good plays.
Yeah, if your whole lineup's chalky and you need a pivot, I do think that's a pretty logical way to go. Let's see. It's starting to freeze up on me here. Come on. All right. Okay. I'm asking about Goodwin. He's fine. Just make sure he starts with Kennard back. I don't think that's guaranteed. Anson asking about Hendricks. We do like Hendricks. He's just priced up. So you're fine to go there. Yeah, I mean, proceed with some caution. I don't think he's going to be as popular as some of the other Utah pieces, though. Peter asking about Connington. Personally, I don't like playing Pat Connington, even with the whole team out. But how do you feel about him? I'm imagining you like him a little bit more than me, but I don't know. It's a scary play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Connington. I'm kind of with you. I'm probably not going to get to too much. It just seems a little bit too, s- peripheral value to really get there.
Yeah, I'd rather go to Malik or Crowder ahead of him personally. And then another nice bit of info here from Chuck. Fox went through a full practice yesterday, leaned towards him playing. So, yeah, I think we all lean towards him playing. And with what Chuck just said, I think it's safe to kind of project him in. So let's get to centers here. I'm going to refresh the data. Maybe we got this update with Milwaukee now where we're going to see Portis shoot up to 60, 70% on DK and probably close to on FanDuel. Not yet, but that's okay. And again, the slate lock's 30 minutes later than usual, guys. So if you are in the Discord, that's going to start around 7 p.m. I think it's Chuck tonight. So obviously, he'll help you break down any news that's breaking in this last hour or so before lock. But yeah, center, interesting tonight. Yurtseven, pretty popular on both sides. I know we both like Collins. Drummond, the talk of the town. Can't play him over on FanDuel, but on DK, I do think he has upside. I know people are looking at those tremendous game logs. Just keep in mind, he has been starting in certain spots. We're not going to see that tonight, but if Caruso is out, that should secure his minutes. But yeah, I guess where you at center? I mean, it's rare that we're saying play some of these power forward guys at the center spots, but on a night where we have Collins and Portis, I mean, this is a little bit different. I think those are probably the two best on the slate as things stand.
Yeah, man, right there with you. Like all these guys, Collins, Kuzma, Drummond, and Portis. Even I'd even throw in Jabari Walker in the conversation. These mid tier guys, like I can see him playing them at center. So, yeah, it seems like a mid tier center forward type of night. You can always get up to guys like Vooch and Gobert, but man, it's hard to get away from these guys. I agree.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I do like AD in the late game if you're over on DK. 10-1 just feels a little bit cheap for him. Sabonis, tremendous here at 10% owned. Chicago, just not a great defensive front court, especially with no Patrick Williams. Totally fine getting to him. But yeah, I mean, we started the show like I think you have to eat the chalk at guard. But now with Giannis out, I mean, there's going to be chalk here in the front court as well. I'm just
Yeah.
going to sort by FanDuel ownership. I mean, Claxton popping a little higher than I expected him to. Um, Bagley, I wish they didn't price him up to 6,900 on FanDuel. That's someone I'd probably shout out as lower owned than he should be. I will say, kind of the sneaky play tonight. Once this ownership updates, and it probably will in the next 10 or so minutes, we're going to see Portis shoot way, way, way up. But
Yeah.
Lopez probably floats between 15, 20% max. I actually don't mind mixing in some Lopez here. Again, Clippers, great defensive team, but their front court is a spot where they're a little bit softer. And then on the other side, I mean, no one's going to want to play Zubats, but with Giannis out, this matchup gets a little bit better for him as well. So I think the centers in that game are kind of interesting at their respective price points. Drummond's in that group as well, especially if Caruso's out. But yeah, any other last takes or hot takes at center here? Then we'll get into a dummy build.
Yeah, so I kind of want to hear your thoughts on two guys down here. Shet Holmgren, I kind of mentioned him earlier, and then also who's the other guy I wanted to look at down here? Um, there's one more guy. Where is he?
Guess you're bored
Um,
by DK.
Nick Claxton too. I also kind of want to hear your thoughts on him because he's kind of low on 600, 700 coming off a huge game.
Yeah, so on DK, I like Claxton. On FanDuel, I don't.
Yeah,
I think where you're pushing 40% with him, that's too heavy. But where he's only 14, and I think that's going to come down even more with this Giannis news because we're going to see the ownerships on both Lopez and Portis go up. So it's really just about ownership on those guys. Like Claxton on DK, don't like him so much on FanDuel. Then as for Chet, I mean, it's just tough for me to get to him against LA. I mean, I don't know. Maybe if LeBron's out and AD's really running that offense, then things open up just a little bit. But we've seen him kind of crush in matchups. He should do okay in other spots. Definitely a wide range of outcomes for him. But personally, around 8K, I think I'd be prioritizing maybe Dame, some of the Clippers ahead of him. So yeah, I think he's fine in his ownership. I mean, 6% does feel too low. But yeah, I just don't know that I'd be prioritizing him personally.
yeah, I'm right there with you. And then one more guy, and then we'll get into the dummy build.
Yeah.
Marvin Bagley. So he's been tilting for me because I've seen him play games where he's played three quarters and got benched in the fourth. So I think he's solid 6.1K, 6.9K on FanDuel. They should match his minutes with Collins here. I think he's fine. I don't know if I have like a huge stand on him though.
Yeah, I do like him on DK. 7% own feels too low. You get a
Yeah,
little bit more wiggle room if he does play as many minutes as we're projecting for it, 28.4. And again, no Kessler, no Laurie. That matchup does get a little bit softer for him. We like so many other pieces of this game. So if you could find other guys in that game with upside that you like, I mean, that's a great way to get different. We're talking about Bagley for sure. I mean, if Clarkson's ownership comes down, then he'd be someone. But yeah, Jordan Poole was another one too. Not that I love Jordan Poole or think he's as good as the Utah plays here, but when you're getting him in a fraction of the ownership, that's definitely appealing. And Bagley kind of fits that mold as well if you're loading up on that game. So people are going to be stacking that game, but they're not going to be that heavy on Bagley. They're not going to be that heavy on Poole. So that's a good way to get different if that's the direction you're going.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
but yeah, let's get into a dummy build. I'll check the chat again. We got a few things coming in. So Edwards jumped in the model. Um, yeah, I'm not sure why did Kyle Anderson get ruled out. Maybe Edwards has upside here. It's just the blowout so scary. Like to pay a premium for him here is a little bit nerve wracking. I don't hate him as a tournament play, but if I'm only playing one lineup, I don't think I'd be getting there. I am asked about Claxton, who we just talked about. Kispert, though. Any thoughts on Kispert coming off the bench? I think he's priced up a little bit more than he should have been, but he kind of fits that same mold as Bagley and Poole, just like lower owned than some of the other options here.
Yeah, if you've been in the Discord, you know I'm an anti Corey Kispert fan. I think he's fine, man. It's just like he's so scoring reliant, where it's
Oh
like
yeah.
I hate playing him. So yeah, I'm probably gonna be off Kispert.
Yeah, he's like a poor man's Jordan Clarkson off the bench. He definitely gets his
Yeah.
shots up, but if they don't go in, you're in trouble. Barry with a hot take here. Try fading UFA for GPP if you're playing multiple lines. I mean, yeah, I think it's tough to get away from Collins, but definitely easier now that we have Portis available. I will say Sexton at his ownership, there's definitely pivots in that range. So not the craziest thing. I'd just say make sure you feel pretty strong about your pivots. And then Jose, Portis, or Lopez. 9 times out of 10 for me, it's Portis. But like I said, if your whole lineup is chalk and you're desperate for a way to get different, there have been games where Lopez has outplayed him. Wouldn't be the craziest thing to see here. So, all right, let's get into this build now. I think we're going to have to start with what? Portis.
Yeah.
I'll just plug in the obvious
Dame.
plays. We want Dame, right?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Dame. I like Collins a lot. I don't think we could get away from him.
Mm-hmm.
Favorite
Kuzma.
guard. Oh yeah, dude,
I gotta
love
get Kuzma in
Kuz.
there.
And then are we going Sexton, George, Clarkson?
This is where I think you win and lose a slate because these guards are going to be probably whoever you get right. So I'm good with um, Sexton. I think we both really like. We can throw him in. I think
Yeah,
Clarkson's good off the bench. So tons of ways.
yeah, I definitely agree. Like this may be the difference tonight. Like if you
Yeah,
play lower owned Clarkson, he's not that much lower owned, but if he outscores Sexton, that could be the difference. So we're left with 5K per. Um, hmm. I don't love like the chalky Horton Tucker or the chalky Sensabaugh, if we're being honest. I
yeah.
mean, if we could find a way to get different. I mean, we got a guard position too and a utility. So if there's a
Mhm.
value play you really like, feel free to just shout it out. I could plug it in, but
Um, let's go
we'll
like
see.
a low. Let's go low on. Well, I don't know. I kind of want to play ties too, but if we play ties, we're gonna be too chalky, right?
I mean, it
Five
would
souls.
depend what we do with the other spots. I don't mind like Norm Powell. That's a
Yeah,
weird one. That's pretty weird. I mean, the AO shout too,
yeah.
actually.
Ayo.
57 for AO. I
Mhm.
like that
I
a
like him
lot.
too. Shooter, we could
Um,
throw in that conversation as well. 59. He
yeah,
did.
Schroeder's right in that conversation. So yeah, the small forward, we have 46, so we could go a little bit above that if we have to. I mean, we did mention Norm Powell. I mean, that's a pretty good way to get different. I think no one's going to want to play him.
Yeah.
Low floor, but very high ceiling coming off the bench there. And we have seen him at times get running blowouts too. So I do like Norm. And then we're left with 42. What kind of crap are we stuck? Landry Shamet, probably not. Hagens, who was brought up on the show, I don't think that's the craziest play. I'm guessing there's something better, but I mean, we got Crowder down here.
Yeah. He's
Might be
okay.
Crowder. Horton Tucker chalk isn't
Yeah.
insane. I don't know. I think it's Crowder if we're like billing a chalk line or like a cash game
Well,
lineup.
yeah.
Um,
Probably.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that. So yeah, I mean, mix and match. Obviously, anyone tune in. If you go a little bit cheaper at small forward, maybe put Crowder there, you could get a little bit different at the utility. There's definitely options. We have 400 left over, but I think that's a pretty decent build. That's it for questions for now. So yeah, anyone tuned in, please like the video, subscribe to the channel. I did notice today we're coming up on 9 and then 10K subscribers will be just around that corner. So definitely subscribe if you're not already. Definitely like the video as well. That helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. But any last minute thoughts on the slate? I think we're still waiting for some of this data update on Milwaukee, but that's definitely going to be a main point on tonight's slate, along with that Utah Washington game.
Yeah, so I think just monitoring this Keontae George news, because if he for some reason were to sit, Clarkson and Sexton would both be elite. I mean, they're already both really good, but if he sat, that'd be really tough to not play both those guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then that is a situation where I'd have even more. I mean, I feel pretty good getting away from Horton Tucker right now, honestly.
Yeah,
Just knowing he's going to be capped around 20 minutes, it's tough for him to really kill you. But if George is out and he's going to play closer to 25, that's a terrifying thing to get away from. But yeah, if we're sorting by DK value, again, ownership hasn't updated yet, but we're seeing Beasley, Portis, Beverly, Lopez all at the top of the model now for value on DK and FanDuel as well. We have Dame as the top value play, which whenever
so
you get a high OF index play as the top of value, obviously that's something you're going to want in your lineups. But yeah, everyone, thanks again for tuning in. We will have Chuck in the Discord in just 20 minutes. Links for that are in the description below. Would love to see some screenshots in the Discord tonight. Let's have some fun and make some money. Take care, everyone.
see you guys. Good luck. Dame time.